3,000 ships stranded. The Persian Gulf has become the world's largest parking lot. On March 4th, Iran declared the Strait of Hormuz closed. Not with battleships. Not with submarines. With $500 drones. And in 3 weeks, it has triggered the biggest oil disruption in human history. This is the story of how a 21-mile-wide passage brought the global economy to its knees. Comment below, which country do you think gets hurt the most? I read every single one.
To understand why the world is panicking, you need to understand one number. 20%. 20% of all the oil traded on Earth passes through this single strait. 20 million barrels every single day. Squeezed through a passage just 21 miles wide, between Iran on one side and Oman on the other. But it is not just oil. Qatar, the world's largest liquefied natural gas exporter, ships everything through Hormuz. The Gulf states produce 45% of the world's sulfur, the chemical that makes fertilizer, processes copper, and manufactures sulfuric acid. All of it moves through this strait. For decades, military experts warned, if Iran ever closes Hormuz, the global economy collapses. Nobody believed they would actually do it. Then, on February 28, the United States and Israel launched surprise strikes across Iran. 6 days later, Iran did the unthinkable.
Here is the part that shocked every military analyst. Iran did not use its navy. It barely used its missiles. Within hours of the American strikes, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps transmitted warnings on VHF radio to every vessel in the strait. No ships would be permitted to pass. Then they proved it. Iran's shot drones, 700 to 1,000 kilometer range, costing roughly $500 each, began patrolling the strait around the clock. Iran manufactures 10,000 of these drones every single month. 10,000. They are cheap, disposable, and nearly impossible to stop in large numbers. Tanker traffic dropped 70% in the first 48 hours. 150 ships anchored outside the strait, refusing to enter. By March 12, 21 merchant vessels had been attacked. Insurance companies quadrupled their war risk premiums overnight. Even ships willing to try could not afford to. Subscribe to Tatveda. I break down one global crisis every week, and this one is far from over.
But the drones were only half the story. On March 1st, Iran deployed something the world had never seen before, the first statelet explosive drone boat swarm in history. Unmanned surface vessels. No crew. Packed with explosives. One operator controlling 10 boats simultaneously from a shore station. They attacked a commercial tanker near the strait entrance, and the footage stunned naval commanders worldwide. This is not science fiction. One person, sitting in a room, directing 10 explosive boats at a target, while overhead drones provide surveillance. Traditional navies have no playbook for this. Aircraft carriers cannot outrun a swarm of $50 speedboats carrying warheads. Military analysts now call it the most significant naval innovation since the torpedo. And Iran has thousands of them.
Now let us look at the damage. Because the numbers are staggering. Before the war, Brent crude oil Saturday at roughly $75 a barrel. Today, it is $126. A 68% increase in less than a month. 10 million barrels per day have been taken offline. That is not a disruption, that is an amputation. The International Energy Agency called this, and I quote, the greatest global energy and food security challenge in history. Greater than the 1973 Arab oil embargo. Greater than the Iranian Revolution in '79. Greater than the Gulf War. The largest supply shock the world has ever measured. QatarEnergy declared force majeure on all exports, meaning they legally cannot fulfill contracts. Billions of dollars in natural gas deals, frozen overnight. And here is the detail most people miss, the Gulf supplies 45% of global sulfur. Without sulfur, you cannot make fertilizer. Without fertilizer, food prices spike within weeks. This is not just an energy crisis. It is a food crisis waiting to happen.
So who is paying the price? Everyone. But some far more than others. Start with India. India imports 60% of its oil from the Persian Gulf. The Indian crude oil basket has hit $156 per barrel, $30 more than the global price. Why? Because insurance and shipping costs through the war zone have exploded. 9.1 million Indians live and work in the Gulf. 220,000 have already been evacuated. India's strategic petroleum reserve covers just 9.5 days. China has months. The United States. Gas prices jumped from $2.98 to $3.93 per gallon in 3 weeks. The fastest surge in decades. The Dow fell 400 points in a single day. Economists are warning of stagflation, rising prices with slowing growth. Japan and South Korea import over 80% of their oil through Hormuz. Europe's natural gas prices are spiking as Qatari LNG stops flowing. Russia, the one country profiting from all of this, has made billions as buyers scramble for alternative supply. Every country on earth feels this. There is no immunity.
The American response has been escalation through threat. President Trump warned Iran that he would, quote, obliterate their power plants if the Strait of Hormuz does not reopen. He set a deadline. Then extended it. Then extended it again. Meanwhile, the US military is attempting to clear Iranian mines and drone patrols from the strait. The methods read like science fiction, laser-equipped helicopters to detonate floating mines. Artificial intelligence drones that autonomously map the ocean floor. Sonar arrays that scan for underwater threats in real time. But there is a fundamental asymmetry. The US is spending millions per day to clear the strait. Iran is spending thousands to remine and redrone it. Every Shahed drone Iran launches costs $500. Every interceptor missile the US fires costs $2 million. That ratio, 4,000 to 1, is the reason this blockade has held for 3 weeks and counting.
So where does this end? Iran's Revolutionary Guard has promised that, quote, not 1 liter of oil will pass through Hormuz. The UAE's oil chief called it economic terrorism against every nation on earth. The United States says the strait will reopen. Iran says it will not. What is certain is this: 21 miles of water now control the fate of the global economy. A country that spent $500 per drone has paralyzed a system worth $20 trillion. And no one, not the US Navy, not diplomacy, not threats, has been able to undo it in 26 days.
If this breakdown helped you understand the biggest crisis nobody is explaining properly, hit like. Share it with someone who needs to see these numbers. And subscribe to Tatveda. I will be tracking this crisis every single week until it ends.